Welcome back. I'm Scott Syverson, your host. Today we're going to be talking about paradaptive intelligence network. But first, what does it mean, paradaptive? And intelligence, for that matter. Paradaptive comes from the French word para, meaning a thing that protects, kind of like the word parachute, a chute that protects you when you leave a plane that hasn't landed. From the French, we also get appipier, which is the root of adaptive, which is the ability to adapt. Network implies multiple things linked together in a system. When we put this all together, we have something that protects us, that is adaptable, and there are multiple components linked into a system. And it's that last point that I really want to key in this particular video. We need to look at the 6 components that comprise the paradaptive intelligence network. Now don't worry, I'm going to go through them at a fairly brisk pace, but we're going to break them down individually in greater detail. I just want to put them out in front of you so that you have an idea of what we're going to be talking about. The 6 major components within the paradaptive intelligence network is the reactor, the conductor, the adapter, the ego, the human action cycle, and the mirror neuron system. Again, don't worry. These will all make sense as I show you how to determine which one of these players or components is most active when you're speaking to your clients in a sales situation. Kind of the best way to look at this is to think about it as a computer. In a computer, we have lots of different subsystems that are operating independently that all come together to make a computer perform what you want it to do. You have a graphics card, you have an audio card, you have memory, you have long-term disk storage, you have a CPU. The bus is shuttling all this information around the computer, not to mention all sorts of subsystems that are processing. The human brain is very much like that when we look at these 6 components. They're all acting independently, doing their own thing. And as we will see, these specific components will rise and take forefront depending on the situations that you run into. And that's why we're going to look at them individually, so you'll be able to tell what's going on in the brain of a client or a prospect as a salesperson. There's a long history of looking at the brain as 3 subcomponents, something that's called the triune brain. Freud had his id, ego, and superego. There have been other models that, again, break this down into the reptilian, mammalian, and the human brain. So we see this current theme of 3s. To a certain extent, they were all looking at the same thing, but not necessarily organizing it in the proper fashion. As I see the triune brain, and as I present this model to you, I am more associated closely with the reptilian brain, mammalian brain, and the human brain, triune brain model, although I don't stick to it to the degree which it was originally presented. The first thing that I'm going to start off with is the reactor, and this is associated with the reptilian brain. It is a more primitive brain structure. I call the reactor the sensory command and control center. If you think about it, when you think about this lowest part of the brain, all the sensory organs from the body are reporting in through the reactor. And in addition, it's also getting not only external feed from sensors, touch, feel, heat, things of that nature, it's also getting analysis from your eyes and ears, taste, and other things. The reptilian part of the brain is associated with coordinating all these sensory inputs and sitting over there and protecting it. The main mission of the reactor is to protect the self. Now the self can be not only just your personality or your internal life, but also the body. And if you think about this, this is a really great combination. Basically, you have a subbrain, a same processing unit, that's listening to all the sensory data coming in through all your sensory outputs and examining it for threats to the body. Now it has a primary bias. It will either want to move you towards things that are pleasurable or move you away from things that are harmful. Those are its 2 primary programming designs. This is a great setup. Have you ever wondered why someone throws something at your head and you can duck? Or something pops out in front of your car, slam on the brakes? That is your reactor processing that data and acting instantly without any cognitive processes in your brain. You don't even have to think about it. It happens instinctively. You react to it. That's why I call it the reactor. It is able to react to anything in the environment that can be harmful to you, whether it be someone telling a lie or a mistruth, or a snake that's about ready to strike at you. Either one of those will make the reactor rise to the forefront and take action, and putting the other brain processing systems to a lower level and rising to supremacy. The reactor monitors everything in your surroundings 24/7. It's the reason why if there's a noise at night while you're sleeping, it wakes you up, and you know it was a noise that woke you up. It is always on, it is always waiting and listening to protect the body. And also why you might wake up in the middle of the night with a tummy ache of some sort. That's your reactor rising to the forefront. There is something wrong with your body. It's getting that sensory feed, and it's rising to supremacy, and it's taking action by invoking the conscious brain to come online and solve the problem. In this way, it's acting as a shortstop, taking action before you are actually thinking about what needs to be done. The reactor has 6 universal needs that drives all human behavior. In order, and this is very important: freedom and power, connection and esteem, creativity and meaning. Freedom and power are more primal. Connection and esteem are more communal. Creativity and meaning are more internal. Now these are hierarchical, meaning that you cannot achieve power without having first achieved freedom, nor can you get connection without having achieved those first two in sequence. So these have to be achieved, or you are programmed biologically to achieve these in a very specific order, which is freedom, power, connection, esteem, creativity, and meaning. And again, that will all come into focus as we go on and learn about how these actually work in the sales environment. But just remember, you can't skip ahead to meaning or esteem if you have not satisfied the primal powers of freedom and then power. The next in line to look at is the conductor. This is the mammalian brain, as I've mentioned just a little bit ago. Its mission is to regulate your conduct to optimize or create optimal solutions. If you think about it, if we were motivated to only do half jobs, we would have starved in the early ice ages. Oh, I kind of went out and sort of gathered, or I kind of thought I'd do a little bit of hunting today. Probably isn't what made us survive. The conductor drives us to optimize what we're doing, and that also includes doing it most efficiently. The other thing that the conductor does is there's a dynamic in humans because we're social creatures. We need to tend to ourselves, but we also need to tend to our tribe. You can do one to the benefit of one to the exclusion of the other, which could be harmful. So there has to be a balance between yourself and what you're doing for your tribe. The conductor is responsible for sorting this behavior out. You can kind of think about it as where morality lies, or where morality comes from. If you think about it, morality is what's best for yourself versus what's best for others. Now, if you look at the reptilian brain versus the mammalian brain, some things start to come out that help us kind of see ourselves as salespeople and prospecting and things that we do as we're going about the sales cycle. Reptilians deal with chaos theory. They kind of wander around and either bump into food or bump into predators or bump into safety spots or bump into water or whatever it may be. But there is a randomness, a chaos to their lives. And it works okay. It's a big world. You can randomly bump around and live long enough to procreate. The ratio between predators and non-predators is balanced such that both can propagate their species. Let me explain a little bit how that might work. You're driving along and you see a potential prospect that you hadn't seen or wasn't aware of, and you immediately move over to investigate. Well, that's chaos. You're randomly moving about your environment and you've bumped into something that may give you pleasure in the form of a sale, a new contact. That's the reptilian part of your brain. That's the reactor reacting to something in the environment and moving you towards something that's positive. When we look at the mammalian brain is where we start to see organized behavior. The conductor starts to organize us, to put us in places of success, put us in places of safety, and moving us away from known dangers. So you can kind of see how that random reactive brain is just reacting to whatever it bumps into, and the mammalian brain is starting to organize us and put us into known places of what we need and known places of things that are going to be successful and good for us. That's that moving us towards things and moving us away, which is that bias of moving towards pleasure and moving away from things that will harm us. Your conductor, the mammalian part of your brain, might move you to organize and go and research sources that might tell you where things are being developed or where you might find potential clients, things of that nature, where you organize your time and look for clients in a systematic way in places that you would anticipate to find them. That is the mammalian brain moving you to places of potential known success and potential known pleasures, and moving you away from places that you're not going to find clients, which is moving you away from things that harm you, such as wasted time. All right, now it's time to talk about the adapter, the human brain. This is what the conscious brain, this is what you're listening to me with now. Its primary mission is adaptation. It is an adaptational engine. In order for an adaptational engine to work, it must always be learning. This is where we get our curiosity. You cannot adapt if you do not have bits and pieces of things that you have gathered along the way to this position or to this situation, and not have some direction to go. That is why we are always learning, and why we always have to learn as salespeople. We always need to be learning so that we can have better adaptation. The more you learn, and hopefully the more you gather from this and my book, Sales Psychology 101, the more adaptable you will be, and the meaning more success in the sales game. The adapter has a bias. Its primary bias is towards cooperation. That's why you can walk up to any stranger and, hey, what time is it? And they'll tell you. They're pre-programmed for cooperation. We are a societal animal. We are a pack animal. We cannot get along without cooperation. And that's really important, and we'll get to this in a little bit more. But this is why such words have power, such as, can you help me understand what's going on at your place of work? What is the problem that you're dealing with? Help me understand what that looks like. Those are very powerful words because they go directly at primal DNA programming. Now, what makes us human is the adapter also has an outside logic and processing center that is able to do analysis that other animals do not have. And that gives us some special and unique abilities. One of the things that does allow us to do, it allows us to ignore impulses from the other parts of the brain that I've mentioned, the reactor or the conductor. We have the ability to ignore those impulses coming from those portions of the brain because they do, like I said, rise to their occasion when the situation is more in their domain. But we have the ability to silence those, or at least ignore them to a certain degree. And that really does make us unique among animals. The other thing the adapter does is it lets us use relationships as an adaptational mechanism. Think about this. We can either solve problems ourselves, or we can go get other people and their resources, their knowledge, to solve problems. And this is the core of being a salesperson. You are the person that is supplying them with a resource to help solve a problem they have. So, this is probably why this is one of the most important aspects to understand in sales, which is your clients are programmed to go and find other resources, other relationships to solve their problems. It's biological. You as a salesperson are part of the biological order of our society. You're a needed component, and life does not go on in our modern society without salespeople. So just know that from a DNA standpoint, you're critical to the human race. Now, as mentioned, these three components have an order of primacy. The reactor and conductor work in the background. Normally, the conscious mind, the adapter, has primacy. By that I mean it's usually the thing that is functioning the most. It's the thing that we use the most and the thing that runs our lives. But as, like I said, situations occur, the reactor can achieve primacy when something hops out in your car, somebody throws something at your head, or the conductor can take primacy when it comes to organizing and putting you in positions of success and motivating you to be optimally successful. But it's also important to note that primacy is fluid. As you're moving about in the environment, which is what makes you different than plants. Plants are stationary, you are mobile. And as you move through an environment, you need to adapt to things that you come into in this environment. So primacy, in the way the brain was biologically ordered, was to have these different processing centers move up and down in terms of primacy to take control when needed. And you'll be surprised once we break this down, you'll see this play out in customers and prospects. Now, if you want to master this new technology and this new science of sales, you need to buy my book, Sales Psychology 101 by Scott Syverson. It's available on Amazon.com and also available at other fine booksellers. I hope you go out and buy it and start mastering this material to become the ultimate salesperson.